Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This has been a good show. We're talking about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the Season 2 premiere of Quantum Leap. Great season premiere. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, it's kind of an interesting start. I mean, obviously, you're picking up in the aftermath of last season where it's like, hey, I completed my mission. I thought I did what I needed to do, and this should be my journey home, and looks like I'm in another leap. And I think what makes it so isolating for Ben too is most of this episode revolves around him with just the crew that he's with, but he can't get back to the actual team because his interactions with the team are just flashbacks. So I think it's so poetic where he can't get in contact. It's the longest he's been away from Addison since like this all started, and now it's like, okay, so I can't get in contact with Addison or anyone on the team, especially now that he's remembering everyone from the team. But like the only connection he has to present day is memories from like early days with the Quantum Leap project. So it's like this, it's beautiful that he's remembering more, but it's coming at the worst time because it's making him that much more longing for like any connection, because also he doesn't have his support to tell him, hey, this is what I'm doing, this is what kind of effect I'm having on the timeline, this is what I'm most likely trying to change, because he's kind of winging it. This is the most isolated he's ever been. This is the most he's had to wing it on a jump before. I mean, on a leap. I also love that this cast of people, let's kind of ragtag military team of misfits. It's literally actors I've seen in other stuff too. So obviously it's like, Melissa Roxenberg, obviously, an NBC alum with from Manifest. You also have, I always feel like I'm butchering his name, but it's Francois Arnaud, another NBC. He was on Blind Spot and he was also on Midnight Texas. It took me a while to remember where I remembered Aaron Abrams from, who played Ronnie. He was also, I completely forgot he was in Blind Spot too, and I was like, oh, you were that piece of crap. Right. Funny enough, PJ, who played Enoch, was also in an episode of Blind Spot, which I did not remember at all. I just most recently seen him in an episode, I think it was episode 2 of Gen V, and obviously, like I said, I'm probably butchering his name, but Francois, like, I most recently saw him in Yellow Jacket. So that just, once again, it's just like this particular ragtag group being played by these very specific actors I thought was just so interesting. But yeah, they're on a mission to deliver some cargo, but it's like a low-key, like, hey, hush-hush military thing. But we also find out why this particular group, because each and every one of them has some dirt. They're not like, they've got some stains on their reputations, so now they're being put on this mission together. The character's name, I think, is Greer. I was looking it up. The character's name is Greer, but they just like refer to her because she's the lieutenant and she's the higher ranking officer here. But it's they just call her LT. But she is like the only one that doesn't really have a stain. But the only problem is that she is a woman. It's the 70s, and her trying to make a name for herself in the military hasn't really gone the way she wants to. So that's why this mission is so important to her. Everyone else here has done something that garnishes like, hey, we need to build our reputations back up. For her, it's like, if I can do this, I'm not only setting up my future, but so many other people as well. So for her, like, this mission has to go off with, because like obviously you have Ronnie and Enoch being the ones being like, oh, we should check out this cargo. But even Bailey was like, yo, dude, let's not do that. Let's do our mission. And so was she, like, let's do our mission and just get this done. We're a couple hours away until they get shot down by missiles. And now I also love the running bit throughout the episode where Enoch is like, oh, like, I did this betrayal. And Ronnie's like, wait, what was that betrayal thing you were talking about? He's like, dude, I was losing so much blood. He's like, you going to tell me about that betrayal thing? He's like, no, never. I love that we went the episode never finding out what it was. I'm like, what did you do? And he even said, like, dude, I'm with you 23 hours a day. When would I have done anything that would have equaled betrayal? He's like, dude, there's a lot you could do in an hour. But I love that's a running bit, and we still never found out what was it that Enoch did. Did he sleep with someone that you were into? Or it feels like it had to be something like that, because I thought it was going to be like some deep betrayal, but it never became part of the plot. So it has to be a personal thing. It has to be a thing of, or is it has to be something like bad, but not like extremely world-shattering bad. But like I said, it's got to be a thing of, yeah, you were trying to hook up with this person. Yeah, I hooked up with them behind your back, and I've held this secret for a long period of time or something like it. It has to be something like that. The real soul-crushing aspect of this whole situation is when they find out, hey, we weren't secretly delivering something like we thought we were. Turns out the crate is filled with bricks. I was like, why the hell would they do that? It's like, okay. And they figured it out themselves. It's like, right, we're decoys. Because Ben's like, yeah, never made sense why this ragtag group of, like, once again, when the lieutenant pointed out our issues, why us specifically were given such an important mission. It's because our important mission was to be decoys. So because the Russians found out about this cargo, and the U.S. military found out that the Russians found out about said cargo, so they set this whole thing up. So it's like, cool, because we're the decoys, no one's actually coming to rescue us, because they were kind of hedging their bets. So like, right, they'll come to us the moment they find out we've been shot down, everything's going to be fine. It's like, no, they're not coming for us because we were meant to be the decoys. But even then, later on, it's like Enoch and Ronnie had that moment where they're like, yeah, Enoch is like, yeah, they could have at least told us. We would have turned them down. We most likely would have taken it. I think Ronnie was like, yeah, Ronnie was most likely like, yeah, we would most likely have done it. And Enoch's like, yeah, but it still would have been nice to be asked. And even Greer's like, yeah, I would have. The sad thing is she's like, I would have, because, you know, I'm all about in service of my country. Like, I would have done it gladly. I would have, like, even knowing this was a suicide mission, I would have done it because I believe in my country, and I believe in this mission and what we would have been a part of doing. Which obviously parallels really interestingly with some memories that Ben has of Addison, where he's like obviously a little nervous about her going on this mission, but for her it's like, no, it's military service, you know, and she'd gladly give her life for this country. It's just, you know, it's like, right, like there's going to be risk in everything. I mean, once again, it also plays very true to the actress Caitlin Bassett, who plays Addison, because she is a real life vet. So it is that situation of going into it understanding why, like, we all kind of come into this understanding like there might be sacrifice needed, but we all still chose to go down this route. So that parallel between Lieutenant Greer and Addison, I thought was kind of neat. And once again, it's just like, especially like these memories popping up at these very specific time for Ben. Because I even love Jen and Ian running the probability for because I also love, like, Jen's like, whoa, what are you? He's like, because Ian was like, oh, you have a crush on Addison? He was like, what? No, I don't. And then Jen's like, what are you, in 5th grade? And Ian being like, yeah, what are you, in 5th grade? I'm like, I love you being a little echo hype man in that. Like, what are you, in 5th grade? I like how it just shows how good of a friendship and relationship they all have. But they ran the situation in through Ziggy, and it came up 50-50. Even Ian's like, wow, I wasn't expecting it. For Ben, it's like, cool, thanks, that's so much better. That makes me feel so good right now about, like, that all, you know. But it's like, right, it's just telling you to kind of go off your gut. And it's like, well, what is your gut telling you? And eventually he takes that, lack of a better term, leap, and ends up asking her out, you know? And I love that throughout the episode, he's making these references and everyone's like, what? Because he's like, yeah, I'm going to go MacGyver this. Like, you're going to what? He's like, I was like, how old is that? Like, I guess in my head, I thought that show was older than what it is. The show, like, the original MacGyver came out in 85. So I was like, oh, yeah, okay. Because this is like 78. So, of course, that reference means nothing. I mean, I found that interesting because obviously the original MacGyver even predates the original Quantum Leap, because the original Quantum Leap didn't come out until 89. So either way, just kind of an interesting thing. But it's like, yeah, he made that reference, and he's like, yeah, I have an uncle named MacGyver. Anytime I'm fixing something, I just kind of say his name. It's like, you have an uncle named MacGyver? He's like, yeah, but on my mom's side, we can stop talking about this now, because he keeps making references, and they're like, wait, you have a fiance? He's like, yeah, yeah. It's like, wait, you're keeping a lot of secrets. I thought that was going to be part of the episode where they're like, oh my God, he sold us out to the Russians, because he later on turns out like, oh, I can speak, he understands Russian, he can speak Russian, which obviously we've gone over the fact is Ben is multilingual, knows a lot of languages. So I thought that was going to be an issue, but they just kind of swooped over that, where it's like, and I think that speaks volumes, where no part of their brain thought like, no, there's no way Ben, I mean, you know, the character he's supposed to be, a Perez, is like, there's no way you're part of like selling us out, because it's like, yeah, they shot this plane down. It wasn't with the intention of any survivors, so there would have been no guarantee, nothing benefiting you would have, you know. So they kind of, I guess because of that, they didn't really dive into that. But I thought he would have had to worry about that. But it's like, no, not a concern under these circumstances. Like I said, I think they're a tight knit enough group. There was even the whole thing about the captain. It's like, the pilot, like, do we say a word? It's like, I didn't really know him. It's like, well, he got us to, you know, he was kind of very prickly, but he did the jobs. He always picked us up, always took us where we needed to go. So let's be grateful for that. But even Bailey did the sweet thing where he took the ring, and it's like, right, he deserves to be, it needs to be given to his wife. Because he had talked to Ben a little bit about, hey, I lost someone, and he goes into it a little bit. It turns out that he's gay, and the person he was in love with died, and there were letters that guy's family found, and basically he got reported. But it turns out that guy's like dad was like a general, and it would have meant making it a whole public thing. So he got sent here. This is supposed to be like his quote unquote like Siberia, of like you're kind of just pushed to the side, because that's the thing that he did wrong. It's like being in love with who he was in love with. And for him, it's like, when he was on the landmine, he was like, I need someone to know that like what we had was real. That like I'm because if I die, like no one's ever gonna know that, you know. So I wanted to know, like, someone to know, like, this is what me and this person had mattered. It was real, and you know, so it needs to kind of live on through someone. But luckily, they were able to help. I love how they handled that, because obviously at the moment it's like, all right, let's switch it out for a weight of something of equal weight, where you're like, okay, so we're about to Indiana Jones this. But then, like, once again, I think it's ironic me making that reference, considering I've seen like commercials, bits and pieces, but I was like, no, that's not correct. I was like, I might have seen most of Crystal Skull, which I know like most people be like, that's extremely blasphemous. I'm sorry. But either way, the like switching of the weights, and I liked how they did it. It's like, all right, like you could have maybe a 20-pound difference without the mind going off. So it's like, right, we'll go from like biggest to smallest weight wise, like alternating, and then the final person would just like replace with like they ended up replacing like the LT with a sack of like sands, you know, to kind of compensate. It was this beautiful thing of like, right, we were wearing this together, and we all had to work together, because none of them wanted. It's like, right, we're a team. We're not going to leave you behind, Bailey. Like, no one gets left behind. And I'm, you know, I mean, obviously, if none of them, like, if probably even one of them didn't survive, it probably would have screwed with Ben's attempt to leap. But it's also like, it's not even just about that. But for Ben, it's like, yeah, I'm here with these people, and I want to make sure they get out of this okay. So I even loved him trying to talk to the lieutenant later on about like, or it might have been the scene before. Yeah, it was definitely before Bailey ended up on the mine. That is like, oh, like what you do will matter to a whole bunch of women. Trust me. He's like, I know someone. She's like, Perez, you don't know someone from the future. He's like, right. She's like, we might need to get your head checked when you get back. He's like, yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, I love that Ben's stumbling. It feels like it's probably worse for him now that he's got his memories, like he's got at least a good chunk of his memories back, because it's a little harder of just kind of like, right, especially at a time where you're so isolated too from the rest of the Quantum Leap team, that it's probably a little like, all right, gotta keep stuff straight in my head. I got to be careful about what I say, because I'm just going to sound. Because I think that's also the thing of like, everyone just kind of goes, yeah, whatever. Like, you know, do your thing, because like they're just like, Perez must have hit his head. He's acting wild and out of pocket, but that's about it. So I even love at one point Ronnie called him out, being like, dude, we're tired of like these like basically these anecdotal like stories he's kind of going down because it sounds so nonsensical and weird and wild that they're just like, dude, we're tired of hearing these. But he's the one that ended up like, right, we thought this was like a satellite relay place, but it's actually the place that shot us down out of the sky. Well, let's tap into the relay and be able to kind of contact the military, let them know like, hey, come pick us up. But the problem is Ben also overheard the Russians. It turns out after those guys they captured didn't report in, hey, turns out more people went to go check. Now they know it was a decoy, and now they're going after the real op because there's at least 3 planes in the sky. They probably don't know which one. There's probably other decoys, so it's like, cool, we know of 3, so let's take all 3 of them down. So we'll get lucky with 1, not less all 3 actually contain like important packages. But either way, it's like we can't leave yet until we take care of this. So let's strap that mine and tripwire and everything to the front of this vehicle, and then we'll like drive it into the satellite. Luckily worked. I mean, the whole point was just to kind of mess up the relay. It's like we don't even have to blow up the whole satellite, just like the thing he was tapping into to kind of mess with the navigation. Luckily, the missile had fired and it was heat seeking, so the moment that fire had started, it drew it back and went ahead and blew up the whole satellite too. So it's like, yeah, 2 for 1. I mean, I was also thinking in the back of my head, I was like, yeah, you're on opposite sides, but it is kind of sucky because it's like, there's a lot of Russian operatives that died there. It's like, well, but then there's also the thing that Ben was kind of making a point that like they're so far underground that it's like, that's why he was like, yeah, we'll be able to sneak in without much of an issue because the way this place is designed, like they're most likely super far underground. So maybe they weren't affected. I think that's kind of like the positive spin to it. There probably are a few people that probably died, but I don't know if there's anyone that's so like above ground with this facility because it felt like that was a line of dialogue written in to be like, no, don't worry, like we might be on opposite sides, but we didn't like kill like a whole bunch of people stationed at this place. It felt like that was kind of what they were going for. So I'm actually also kind of sad Ben. I mean, that's always a complicated thing about the leaps. He doesn't always get the aftermath of things because it's like, right, we're going to get picked up. Like we're going to have to make this trail back after the successful mission. So, I mean, the fact is Ben gets the leap afterwards mean they all made it back, but it's still the thing of, you kind of, sometimes it kind of is like, oh, the leap's like, well, you did what you need to do. There's no more trouble. Let's bounce. But it's like, oh, don't get to fully see this to the end. Cause I looked at the time. I was like, oh, we only got like a couple minutes. So there's no more like farewells and type of situation. I mean, he doesn't always get them, but sometimes he kind of does. So I wish like he could have seen this off with the rest of the team, but it's like, nah. Once again, Perez, you always feel bad for the people he leaped into because they're like, wait, what? What happened? Because it's just like for Perez, it's like, wait, weren't we on so much happened? You know, it's like you always can't let that ever slip your mind that the people who get left behind after they've been possessed by a leaper of what that kind of does to them. So, but what was such a surprise, and I think it's so interesting that and it feels very poetic that the person that came to Ben was Ian, and it's like, interesting, why wasn't it Addison? But it's like, right, who gave Ben this mission in the first place to kind of do this to save Addison to stop was obviously it was Ian from the future, but still, you know, so it is so poetic. But Ian, like the moment it's like, oh, Ian's dressed up the way they are, and I'm like, I was like, oh my god. And that look on his face when Ben was like, wait, why are you like looking like that look of like concern. I was like, it's been some time, hasn't it? It's like, it's been 3 years. I was like, Jesus, dude. Because once again, I have really no experience with the original series. So I don't know if Sam was ever isolated from the team for that long period of time. Like, I wonder, was he always in contact with them in some shape or form? Like, I don't know, like, how this compares and contrasts. Like, was he ever able to be in communication with, like, Al and them? Because I mean, I know Al was there, but I don't know how many other people were part of the original like team or not. But it's like, yeah, because it turns out Quantum Leap got shut down, so it makes you wonder: did the military like abandon it after like? Because I guess they spent the next 3 years trying to get to Ben, but then it was like, yeah, the Quantum Leap project was shut down. So I guess this was like their last Hail Mary to try and reach out to Ben. Or maybe it's like the project, because I'm the way Ian said it, it sounds like they were saying they had searched for 3 years and then the project got shut down. Or maybe it's like the project got pretty shortly shut down, and for the past 3 years, Ian and them, because they said they'd kind of given up hope, you know? But the fact is they hadn't even been able to reach Ben and all that. And that's sad too, because for Ben, it was like, that was just seconds ago. Like, you know, I was like connected with you guys, and now you're telling me it's been 3 years. Which is it's not a 1-to-1, but that's some Doctor Who shenanigans where it's like, oh yeah, don't worry, we'll be back the moment you left. Oh, it's actually been a week. That, you know, that's a very common Doctor Who thing, because time isn't, it's a rocket science, but at the same time, obviously it's a very fictitious rocket science, you know, but like, you can't account for everything, because, I mean, science can only take you so far when it comes to this, especially when Ben thought his mission was over. I mean, it's like, yes, you set off to do all this for a particular reason, but whether you really fully believe in it or not, there is a greater power out there, whatever it is, entity, time itself being like, we need you to make things right. That's kind of leading you on this journey. So what's next for you? Why are you still on this path? I mean, once again, the same question got asked, I'm sure, for Sam. He never found his way home. And now it's like, oh God, it's been 3 years. So we're going to try and get Ben back. But even then it's like, there's no guarantee that we will. So maybe next episode we get to catch up on that 3 years of like, maybe get a little bit of a montage of just everything that the team has been through. Like, I mean, once again, a lot can happen in 3 years. So where is everybody? Because even Ian was like, yeah, we kind of given up hope. The question is, had the rest of the team given up? But maybe Addison hadn't. But once again, why is it that Ian specifically here, like you would assume out of anyone, Addison would be? So not less everyone else kind of did, and Ian's the one that never gave up. Especially because it might be a feeling of guilt, because Ian knows, like, right, I'm the one that sent Ben on his journey. I'm the one that reached out to Ben. I'm the one that set all this in motion. So I have to especially be the one. I mean, besides, it's like, Ben's my best friend, so I've got to get my best bud back. But it's also like, I'm sure Ian does feel personally responsible too with everything that, you know, Addison's going through. So that becomes a question. Like I said, how has the rest of the team moved on? Or have they still been trying to work on this? Or has it just been something Ian's been working on by themselves? Those are questions we'll ultimately have to wait to see. But like I said, I think it's just such an interesting start where it's just like very poetic to the beginning where Ben was so lost, but at least he still had Addison to guide him through. Now it's like, no, he was kind of completely on his own. And, you know, he's been through this enough that he ended up figuring his way out, following through, you know? But it's like, yeah, in a situation where it seemed all hope was lost, in both situations for him as Ben, but also him being as Perez in this military squad, he was able to kind of perch up hope for a lot of people and help them out in their respective situations. So I'm curious, will we get any like aftermath information about this? Like, will Ian be able to hit Ben up about, like, the information of, like, oh, these are the people you helped out, and this is what kind of effect it had on history, and this is where that ragtag group, like, where they eventually ended up, like, you know, in the aftermath of that operation. So, excited to have Quantum Leap back. I have not watched the trailer. I avoided the trailer, so I have no idea what to fully expect from this season. That's not me saying like, oh, you should tell me. Like, don't tell me. Like, that's why I avoided the trailer. I don't want to know. I'm excited to see where this season ends up taking us, what leaps Ben gets into this season, what the adventures look like, which is so poetic too, because that ties into like the conversation Magic had with him at the beginning of the episode. I mean, in the earlier flashbacks in the episode about that kind of very topic of like adventure and stuff like that. But either way, like I said, I'm excited to see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good